When most people think about the Ice Age, they imagine woolly mammoths and saber-toothed cats roaming a frozen wasteland. But our ancestors not only survived this hostile environment, they thrived. How did they do it? Hi, it's me and welcome to this channel. This is part 2 of a 2-part series about the Ice Age. Last time we talked about how much of the world was covered in glaciers and how temperatures were so cold that if you breathed, the moisture in your breath would freeze in your throat. Today I want to talk about how humans adapted to these deadly conditions. And boy, did we adapt. In fact, some researchers believe that our ancestors might have first learned to use fire for warmth rather than cooking food. Although other scientists disagree, they created beautiful cave paintings, crafted intricate stone tools, and developed complex language and social systems. So how exactly did they find the time and energy for all this? They also had a complex social structure and engaged in rituals and possibly even had a form of language. They even developed a burial ritual where they buried their dead, possibly indicating a belief in an afterlife or a desire to honor the dead. They might have done this for many reasons, such as to decorate their surroundings, to express their creativity, or to communicate with others. The Neanderthals were such skilled hunters that they sometimes hunted large groups of animals, such as reindeer or bison, in a technique known as group hunting. They were created by humans using natural pigments made from things like plants or minerals. These paintings often depicted animals that humans hunted or gathered, as well as geometric patterns and other symbols. Maybe they thought it was a waste of time, or maybe they just preferred to spend their time doing something else. We're pretty good at changing our behavior and culture to fit in new places. This allowed us to move into new territories and take advantage of new resources. We developed new technologies, art forms, and social systems to help us survive the harsh conditions. Special thanks to my supporters who make videos like this one possible. And we emerged from the Ice Age as one of the most successful species on the planet. We also might have been more physically adaptable than other hominids, allowing us to survive in a wider range of environments. I mean, not everyone is an artist, right? The purpose of these paintings is still debated by experts, but they may have been used for rituals, to record important events, or to teach younger members of the community about the world around them. Some researchers even believe that cave art might have played a role in attracting mates. So next time you think about the Ice Age, remember that it wasn't all just cold and dark. There was also art, innovation, and the beginnings of modern human society. After all, being able to create beautiful works of art would have been a sign of intelligence and creativity. 2 traits that are often seen as desirable in a mate. This required coordination and communication among the hunters, and may have involved driving the animals over cliffs or through choke points where they could be more easily killed. Making cave art might have been a way for humans to connect with each other and share stories and beliefs. So why were we the only ones who got into painting? The answer might lie in the unique characteristics of Homo sapiens. For example, we might have had more advanced cognitive abilities than other hominids, allowing us to think in more abstract ways and come up with more creative solutions to problems. We also might have had a more complex language system, which would have helped us communicate more effectively and coordinate our efforts. It may have even helped them develop a sense of community and belonging, which is something we all need to survive. Just think about it. You're stuck in a dark, freezing cave with nothing to do but paint pictures on the walls. It's not exactly the most fun way to spend your time. But somehow humans in the Ice Age found a way to make it an important part of their culture. Well, in part, it comes down to ingenuity and planning ahead. For example, they might have invented the spear thrower, a device that allows a person to throw a spear with more force and accuracy. This would have been useful for hunting animals from a safe distance. They also might have created the bow and arrow, although there is some debate over who invented this first. These technological advances allowed humans to become more efficient hunters and gatherers, and gave them more time to do other things, like painting cave art. The ability to create and control fire would have been a huge advantage for humans in the Ice Age, allowing them to stay warm, cook food, and protect themselves from predators. They also might have created traps to catch animals or developed tools to help them gather plants and other food sources. Planning ahead would have been key to surviving the winter months when food was scarce and the weather was at its worst. I mean, nothing says stay away like a crackling fire. We created fire, built shelters, developed new tools and weapons, created intricate social systems, and had plenty of free time to paint some truly epic cave art. Now, when we talk about ancient humans, we're talking about more than just Homo sapiens. From Homo erectus to Neanderthals to Denisovans, there were at least 3 human species alive during the Ice Age. They would have experienced extreme cold and hunger, forcing them to work together to survive. It was a full-on team effort. For example, they might have created snowshoes to walk on top of the snow, warmer clothing made from animal skins, and better tools for hunting and gathering. One way they did this was by making warm clothing out of animal skins. They also might have huddled together for warmth or slept in groups to stay warm at night. We don't have a lot of evidence for this last one, but it makes sense. Why be cozy alone when you can be cozy with your best friends? Some even built shelters out of materials that were available to them, like mammoth bones and hides. That's right, mammoth bungalows. What can I say? They were pretty resourceful. Members of the group would have to cooperate to hunt animals, gather plants, and care for the sick or elderly. Everyone pitching in was crucial. While they all went extinct except for us, their survival strategies can teach us a lot about what it took to live back then. First off, humans in the Ice Age lived in small groups and constantly moved around to follow the food supply. They also had to create new technology to help them survive. But probably the biggest challenge was staying warm. Humans had to find ways to keep their bodies warm enough to function properly. One theory suggests that humans started controlling fire around this time, which would make sense, since keeping warm was a major challenge. In the midst of all this struggle to survive, humans still found time to be creative. For example, humans might have hunted animals in groups using spears or other weapons. Take the Neanderthals, for example. They were known for their sophisticated hunting techniques and use of tools. Early humans also developed new technologies to help them survive. Okay, let's talk about that. Humans in the Ice Age created some amazing works of art, including cave paintings, sculptures, and jewelry. Cave paintings are some of the most famous examples of Ice Age art. And it's not just about the paintings themselves, but also the experience of creating them. The thing is, there were multiple hominid species living during the Ice Age, not just Homo sapiens. Then again, maybe the other hominids just didn't feel like painting. Another factor that might have contributed to the success of Homo sapiens during the Ice Age is our ability to adapt to new environments. Overall, our success during the Ice Age can be attributed to a combination of factors, including our intelligence, creativity, adaptability, and ability to work together. So yeah, life was tough during the Ice Age, but humans adapted and thrived. We've survived 2 million years of ups and downs, never giving in despite all the forces of nature trying to wipe us out. We have overcome one disaster after another, all thanks to our brains. Our large brains allowed for flexibility in our thinking, planning for the future, innovating new technologies, and building social networks that helped us survive. And how do we get from living in caves to high-rises, from wearing animal skins to tailored suits and dresses? Before this time, around 12,000 years ago, humans were nomadic hunters. This means that we constantly had to move from place to place in order to find food and shelter. Storing food meant that we didn't have to spend as much time searching for food, and we didn't have to worry about going hungry. We could also use our brains for other things besides finding food. We could plan for the future, create better tools and weapons, and build stronger shelters. Agriculture is the practice of growing crops and raising animals for food. It's believed that agriculture first began in Mesopotamia around 9,000 years ago. At first, agriculture was just a way to supplement the food that humans got from hunting and gathering. But over time, it became the main source of food for humans. These things helped humans thrive. With more food, we could start families and raise children. This meant that they could stay in one area and farm the land rather than moving from place to place to find food. Forests spread across the landscape, and humans began to settle down in one place for longer periods of time. This stability allowed human populations to grow and thrive. As we developed new technologies and learned how to use our environment more efficiently, we were able to produce more food and goods, which led to increased trade and economic growth. This was a major shift from our previous nomadic lifestyle. Instead of constantly moving in search of food and resources, humans began to build permanent structures and cultivate crops. This allowed us to develop more complex social structures and lay the foundation for civilization. We began to create more advanced tools, weapons, and clothing. We also began to develop new technologies such as pottery and weaving. As humans began to domesticate plants and animals, They settled down in one place and developed more permanent communities. The changing climate and the rise of agriculture allowed humans to settle down, develop more complex social structures, and develop new technologies and innovations. These changes laid the foundation for the rise of civilization and the modern world we live in today. This allowed for the development of more complex social structures and the specialization of labor. People could take on different roles in society and develop new technologies and innovations. These technological advances helped make our lives easier and more comfortable. They also helped us produce more food and goods, which led to economic growth. Learn about the tools, weapons, and clothing worn by humans during this time period. And find out how the Stone Age ended and gave way to the Bronze Age. This way of life was very different from the nomadic lifestyle that humans had followed for thousands of years. Writing allowed humans to record information and communicate over long distances. It's believed that writing first developed in Mesopotamia around 5,000 years ago. Writing helped to spread knowledge and ideas, which led to cultural diffusion. Cultural diffusion is the spread of cultural beliefs and practices from one group to another. It's one of the factors that has helped human civilization grow and develop over time. It required hard work and planning, but it also provided stability and security. For the first time in human history, humans could build permanent structures like houses and cities. They could also develop more complex social structures like governments and laws. With better tools and weapons, we could hunt more efficiently and protect ourselves. And with stronger shelters, we could live comfortably and safely. All these things helped humans grow in number and complexity. We hunted animals and gathered wild plants to eat, and we used natural shelters or made temporary shelters from things we could find in the environment. How did we go from being a small band of nomads to being the dominant species on Earth? Our ancestors were able to transform themselves from a small band of nomads into the dominant species on Earth through a combination of factors. Their ability to adapt to new environments, their willingness to cooperate with others, and their capacity for innovation and creativity helped them survive and thrive. In addition, their ability to domesticate animals and grow crops allowed them to settle down in one place and raise their first cities. Finally, their capacity for abstract thought and complex language enabled them to develop new technologies and share knowledge with others. All these factors combined to help our ancestors become the dominant species on Earth. Humans are the only animals that do this. Other animals just eat what they can and leave the rest for someone else. So it took a big change in the way we thought about the world for us to start storing food. It's believed that this change in thinking was caused by several factors. First, humans have bigger brains than any other animal. Bigger brains mean that we can think more complex thoughts and plan for the future. Second, humans are social animals. We live in groups and rely on each other for help. By sharing food, we can help each other survive. Third, humans are adaptable, can live in different climates, and eat different foods. Its adaptability has helped us survive and thrive all over the world. This way of life required a lot of energy because we were always looking for our next meal. This means that they began to keep animals as pets rather than hunting them for food. The process of taming animals was slow and difficult, but it was worth it because tamed animals could be used for many things. They could help humans hunt, herd animals, pull carts, and guard homes. One of the first animals to be domesticated was the dog. Dogs are descended from wolves, and it's believed that they were first domesticated in Europe around 14,000 years ago. Another early domesticated animal was the sheep. Sheep were domesticated from wild goats, and it's believed that they were first domesticated in Mesopotamia around 11,000 years ago. Our days were filled with finding food, and our nights were spent worrying about whether we would have enough food to eat tomorrow. Join us as we take a look at what life was like before we got civilized. Humans are the only surviving members of the genus Homo, but we weren't always this way. According to scientists, we once shared the Earth with at least two other intelligent species, the Neanderthals and the Denisovans. When you don't have enough to eat, you can't spend your energy on anything else, like starting a family or creating tools or weapons. You also can't think of anything past the next meal, so you aren't able to plan for the future. There's no saving for retirement, no hospitals, no schools. All these things require some stability. These ancient hominids lived alongside us for tens of thousands of years, and there's evidence they taught us useful skills and even passed on some of their genes. So we actually have Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA inside of us today. This genetic legacy is another reason why humans are so resilient. It gave us an edge when it came to surviving in harsh environments. But what about when things were not so harsh? What did it take to transform a small band of nomadic hunter-gatherers into modern civilizations spanning every corner of the globe? The most popular theory about how human civilization started is called the Neolithic Revolution, or the Agricultural Revolution. There was a problem with this way of life. According to scientists, we began to store food for the first time around 10,000 BC. What's interesting about storing food is that we had to learn that food could be saved and used later. Around 13,000 years ago, humans started taming wild animals. As humans began to domesticate animals, they also began to experiment with agriculture. As humans began to raise crops and domesticate animals, they began to settle down in one place. The invention of food storage, permanent shelters, and early community organization marked the birth of civilization. One of the most important developments during this time was the invention of writing. So how does this tie in with everything we know about human evolution? As the glaciers melted and temperatures rose, new plants and animals appeared across the northern hemisphere. The end of the last ice age also marked the beginning of the Holocene epoch, a period of time characterized by relatively stable climate conditions. In addition, the end of the last ice age coincided with the rise of agriculture.